What they call airport union rooms are likely to be business meeting rooms at the airport that make it easy for business commuters to fly in and get down to work when a Zoom conference just won't do. But back in the day, a reunion room was that space right outside airport security where spouses, grandchildren, significant others, and animal lovers with a chihuahua dress and sombrero waited for their loved ones to appear. Call me sappy, but if there are balloons, flowers, and pets in outfits with signs saying, "Welcome home," I'm all in. Like the beautiful welcome home the TV movie. That's why I love waiting outside airport security for family and friends to arrive. Each arriving flight means they're bound to be grandparents, favorite aunties, sweethearts, and soldiers and their kids flying into each other's arms. That whole scene takes crying, happy tears to a whole new level. AAA said that 109.5 million of us were expected to travel this weekend. So many of us going home for Christmas. But with hundreds of flight cancellations the past few days, not everyone made it home in time for Christmas. This longing for home seems to be growing these days. Perhaps it's the surging Omicron cases and the deep sadness we feel over the fact that so many people had to spend this holiday far away from the ones they love. Maybe it's someone who's missing this year. Somebody who's supposed to be with us, but isn't. Our family is adjusting to not having Dwight with us for the holidays. It was just too risky for him to fly cross country today, as he had planned. If his flight actually made into the air, as so many are being canceled. We're all sad, but we know it was a wise decision to make. And we're not the only ones. Some of you aren't with your loved ones this Christmas either. Tourists hoping to catch a glimpse of where Christmas all began are also out of luck. The Church of the Nativity, the traditional site where Jesus was born in Bethlehem, remains closed to foreign travelers due to Israel's Omicron travel ban. So we dream of home and long to return to a time and a place when no one was missing, when everything seemed complete. The longing is there, our hearts leaning toward home, that person or place that's just out of sight, the way a plant leans toward a window, reaching toward the sun. Frederick Buechner wrote a book called Longing for Home. It's about his family's turbulent search for a home following his father's suicide. He said, "I believe that no matter how much the world shatters us to pieces, we carry inside us a vision of wholeness that we sense is our true home." It's easy to lose track of home these days, but that doesn't stop us from searching, longing for home. A Presbyterian pastor told the story of being invited to the home of one of the new families in his church to perform a house blessing ceremony. The family were immigrants from Colombia. They had gathered their family and friends and new neighbors. Many of the guests brought food and fresh flowers to share. There were poinsettias and white chrysanthemums everywhere. When the time came for the blessing ceremony, there was a translator. The church members spoke English quite well, but some of their friends didn't. The pastor read Jesus' words from the Sermon on the Mount. "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, what you will wear. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these." And then he listened to the melodic Spanish translation. And he wondered how poignant those words of Jesus must sound to people who traveled so far from the place of their birth and faced so many difficulties. How God's promise of provident care must sound to them, while their friends and other family members face danger and devastating poverty back in their homeland. No matter how this world shatters us to pieces, we carry inside us that vision of home. Homecoming. It's what we long for. It's why we come to church. We feel connection, a sense of belonging that goes beyond blood-kinship ties. The communion elements of bread and juice become our family meal. That is our family table. And though we may not agree on all points, there is one thing that we can all agree on. Jesus Christ is the head of this family. The one whose birth we celebrated yesterday is the head and center and the goal of all that we are in the church. This body of believers and other believers all around the world, imperfect as we know ourselves to be, is his home. Homecoming. Even the words of this morning's text have the feel of a warm, familiar embrace of home. They're among the most beloved of all scriptures. Many of us may know them by heart. Listen now to the word of God from the 2nd chapter of Luke. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth to Galilee in Judea, to the city of Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. This is the word of God for us, God's people. Thanks be to God. On this first Sunday of Christmas, we sing songs and we light candles to remind us that God came to our home, that God came to be where we are in order to bring us home. It's an amazing idea, and one that's perhaps best remembered in song and story. In this holy season of Christmas, we recall that God with us, Emmanuel, was born to a young family, uprooted and displaced from their own home. We can't forget that Jesus' story is an immigrant story, the story of one who came to an inhospitable world to bring us home, though he had no home of his own. Years after he was born in a stable and laid in a manger, Jesus still didn't have a mailing address. He told his followers, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." There are thousands of people in Sacramento right now, some right in our neighborhood, who can relate to this sense of displacement. Rental house prices are soaring. Nowadays, the average rent in Sacramento is higher than Washington, D.C., New York, and Seattle. December is Universal and National Human Rights Month. Safe, affordable housing was first recognized as a human right in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Last June, Congresswomen Ming and Jayapal introduced the Housing is a Human Right Act of 2021. If enacted, The bill will provide billions in federal funds for affordable, accessible housing. Housing, a human right. Everyone needs a place to call home. But even those of us with safe homes and warm beds can't quite shake the feeling that we aren't home yet. Barbara Brown Taylor, an Episcopal preacher and author, describes the longing this way. A sense that there's a place where you belong, that you have somehow gotten separated from. A place that misses you as much as you miss it, and that is calling you to return, only you do not know where or how to get there. All you know is that you are not there yet, and that your life will not be complete until you are. It is not the best feeling in the world, but it is not the worst either. It is not a bad thing to know you belong somewhere, even if you are not there yet. I like to think of it as God's tug, she says, a kind of homing instinct planted in each of us that nags us, that makes us restless when we sit still too long. But none of us is home yet. That is the deep truth. Some of us have homes and some do not, but none of us is home yet. What if Barbara Brown Taylor is right? What if that longing for home was put there on purpose to lead us home to God? We search and we wander and we can't find our way there because, as it turns out, home isn't a place at all. Home is a person, a relationship to Emmanuel, God with us, the one born in Bethlehem of Judea, the one who came to be with us forever. Ted Wardlaw, a Presbyterian pastor, has been the president of Austin Theological Seminary for 20 years. His kids are grown now, but he said back when his two girls were about 8 and 5, the family cleared off a table in the living room to display a family heirloom, a creche, hand-painted by one of their great-grandmothers. All the characters were there, like this one. Shepherds, sheep, wise men, Mary and Joseph and the baby. They sat resplendent in the center of the house for a few weeks. Then Ted and his wife started to notice some additions to the manger scene. First, next to the wise men, a blue-green pony with a fluorescent mane fashionably swept to one side appeared. A day later, a reindeer showed up beside the sheep. Finally, closer to Christmas, a purple styrofoam handmade ornament, all covered in glitter, found its place right beside the manger. Ted, an accomplished New Testament scholar, was about to call his daughters in and give them a biblically accurate explanation of the Nativity. That's when he had a flash of insight into his children's hearts. These additional things in the manger scenes weren't distractions at all, he realized, but one small person's longing to connect her life to the story. We're all there, kids and grown-ups alike. We share that same longing to connect our life to the story. We all long to be at home with the one who blankets us with peace and comforts all in need. Whether you have wandered far or spent your whole life in one place, it is the same. This starlit season, Emmanuel comes to you. Place yourself in his story. Receive Christ's Spirit more fully into your life. Open your heart to him this season and follow him all the rest of your days. Join him as he feeds the hungry and clothes and shelters those in need. Accept the home he provides for you and for all who yearn for him as you celebrate his birth and welcome his presence with you always.